Prince George's County Public Schools, and I would like to welcome you to the September 20th System Oversight Meeting. Today's meeting will focus on the Division of Information Technology. Staff members will provide an overview on technology actions and initiatives for FY 2010, as well as department reports from the Enterprise Systems, Telecommunication, Technology Operations, Technology Training, Technology Applications, and Printing Services. Topics will include the School District Student Information System, Network Performance and Security, Customer Support, Hardware and Software Upgrades, and Principal and Professional Development. The presentation will be followed by a question and answer session. Items on the consent agenda include a contract that will provide legislative lobbying services to the Board of Education, an action to support the administration of the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene's voluntary 2010 Maryland Youth Tobacco Survey to Prince George's County Public School students in grades 6 through 12. This afternoon, there is no unfinished business, new business, or follow-up items for discussion. And now, the September 20th System Oversight Meeting is about to begin.
Thank you, Mr. Presley. Good afternoon and welcome to the September 20th, 2010 System Oversight Meeting of the Prince George's County Board of Education. Before I begin, please turn off your wireless communications as they tend to interfere with the taping of the meeting. Ms. Johnson, would you please lead us in the board prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance?
O God, we pray to administer that which is just in all educational policies, being ever mindful of your guidance, stir us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Ms. Jackson, call the roll, please.
Ms. Beck?
Present.
Ms. Fletcher? Here. Ms. Seiler?
Here.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Ms. Johnson?
Present.
Ms. Waller?
Present.
Mr. Harris?
Here.
Dr. Watson? Ms. Jacobs?
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we'd have a moment of silence, please. Sergeant Clinton Brown, husband of Jacqueline Brown, Executive Assistant to the Board of Education. I want to ask everybody to please remember Ms. Brown in this time of need and keep her family in your prayers. Colleagues, at this time, we are at the point of adopting the agenda for this afternoon. Prior to adoption of the agenda, please note the following changes. Item 9.1 to 9.4, which is listed on the budget consent agenda, have been deleted from the agenda. May I please have a motion to adopt the September 20th, 2010 System Oversight Meeting?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Waller. It's been properly moved in second that the Board of Education approves the agenda scheduled for today, the System Oversight Meeting. Approval of minutes. Colleagues, there are no minutes to approve or required for approval at this particular meeting. Legislative update, just a reminder that following this particular meeting, we will have regular scheduled updates from our legislative representative. There are no comments from the public on items that the board will take action. Just as a reminder that system oversight meetings are designed to give the board an overview of systems across the district. Today is the information systems scheduled meeting, and we are prepared for the presentation. Dr. Height, if you're prepared to proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair,
Thank
and
you.
good afternoon, everyone. This afternoon, we will be, as described by the board chair, conducting information on our system oversight with respect to information technology. This is designed to look at whether or not those systems are operating as they should. And today's presentation will cover deep analysis of the enterprise systems, telecommunications, technology operations, technology training, technology applications, and printing. I must also add that it was an oversight for me at a previous board meeting that I did not acknowledge the Division of Information Technology in the preparation that they did prior to the beginning of school. And while I acknowledged everyone else and every other department, I failed to acknowledge our IT department, and I want to publicly thank them for preparing our system to open school this year with less fanfare than we opened a year ago. So thank you to all of the individuals in Information Technology Department for your tremendous work. And with that, I will turn this over to Mr. Wesley Watts. He is Chief of Information Technology. Mr. Watts.
Thank you, Dr. Height. Board members, colleagues, and community members. I have a few items before we begin about the beginning of the school year, just to give you an idea of some of the things that we track daily to make sure that we have things going in an appropriate manner. So, Dwight, if you could pull up the system usage on SchoolMax. Okay, what you're looking at right now is a usage of the family portal of SchoolMax. And the reason I bring that up is we monitored that last year. We had, at the end of the school year, we had approximately 80,000 users of the system last year. This year we are, this is our third week into the school system, the school year, and we have a little less than 50,000 users so far. And you can see last year we had we ended up with approximately 12,000 staff that used the system. We're 10,300 in there. You can see the parents at about 11,700, it looks like. And that, that number will double, perhaps triple this year. And our students are about 60% of our usage are students. We're at about 27,000. And I'm hoping to get some, Mr. Harris, your help and to push that number a little bit higher this year. Last year we had about 50,000 students, a little bit less than that. And our goal is to bring the total usage up to about 100,000 users this year, which we think that we're quite capable of doing, just to give you an idea. And this is just showing what we've breakdown of the staff. You can see how many teachers, and you can see how many administrative staff, and then it says principals there, but that also includes the assistant principals as well, how many people are using the system if you look at that. Dwight, if you could switch to the other usage file. What you're seeing in front of you right now is the usage every 15 minutes we take a snapshot of the system, and we've recorded that since we've gone live with SchoolMax. And right now what you're looking at is at 1:15 we have 7,106 users have used the system today. We have 1,812 users on the system right now. And this is just staff, ladies and gentlemen. This is not students and family members. This is just staff. And at the beginning of our implementation, our focus was on the staff, making sure that they had access, making sure the system was up and running properly. Okay? And Dwight, if you could switch to registrations. What you're looking at, Dwight, if you could go to the top of that. What you're looking at right now is a file, move it over, thank you. This is a file that shows registrations from the time we complete rollover from the previous year. On week 1, you can see that we had about 1,161 registrations during that week. And Dwight, if you go down a little bit, towards the end there, we captured the last 4 or 5 weeks here. We've had 10 weeks since rollover. And as you can see down the bottom, we have approximately 33,193 registrations have occurred since July 13th. Okay, of those registrations, about 63% of them are at the elementary schools. These are the elementary registrars. This is the work that they do. About 8.8% of them are middle schools. You can see that's about 2,907 registrations. And at the high school level, we have about 9,000 registrations. About 27% of all registrations are at the high school. Okay, and we track this on a daily basis. and it gives us a good indication. We have this, again, for the last 3 years. We've been tracking this daily to give us an idea of how many registrations occur during the school year. Okay, and you can see just last week, if you just add up the total registrations from last week, we have approximately 1,200 registrations that occurred last week, which was a 4-day work week. Okay, so you can see the types of registrations, the type of work that's going on. Okay, thank you, Dwight. We can switch back.
Mr. Watts, Mr. Watts,
Yes, sir.
before you move on, can you define what we mean by registrations?
Yes, I will. A registration, ladies and gentlemen, is a transfer from one building to another that requires a registration into that building, or a new student coming in, which requires a registration into the building as well. So it includes your transfers and your new students coming into the building. And that's what's occurred 33,000 times since July 13th. Thank you, Dr. Height. So we'll switch back to the session. From our last PMAP session, we had a few items that we were required to review, and I just want to give you a quick, brief snapshot of that. These are several of the tasks that we've been working on in the division. And you can see the last one here on May 1, our timeline was to develop procedures to build information systems to capture data. And we're building an administrative procedure. That procedure is upstairs with the legal services to be reviewed, to be used as a administrative procedure on how we move forward with collecting data in the district. The other three here down below, I will let my one of my managers review as he talks about security and the help desk calls, what we're doing in those areas as far as improving those areas that were asked from last time. Dwight, if you can go to the next slide. And this one here is also complete. Basically, we have several different training sessions that we give to staff. And what we used to do, what used to be a metric for us was just to capture how many staff we were training. And although that's a good metric, it really doesn't mean that much, other than you know how many people you've been training. What we're doing now is we actually have an assessment. So we actually give them a quiz, if you will, at the end of the session to make sure that they're capturing and they're getting information so they understand what they've been taught. So what we do is we have assessments created for 24 of our different training courses, and we're giving those now and capturing data on how well that's going. And we're doing that this year. And we did that near the end of last year, and it will be continuing all throughout this year. So I'm going to turn over the next department is the Enterprise Systems. I'm going to turn that over to the Enterprise Systems Officer, Senthil Parameeswaran. Senthil.
Thank you, Mr. Watts. Good afternoon. I manage the Enterprise Systems Office. We are responsible for 3 core services. Enterprise Systems Planning and Architecture, with which we make sure that there is adequate capacity on our enterprise applications, namely Oracle e-Business Suite, SchoolMax, Data Warehouse, and Google Apps. Our second core service is Enterprise Systems Administration. We make sure that the systems are kept up to date with all the patches. We make sure that we have adequate storage. Backup and recovery is completed on time. The systems are tuned for optimal performance and availability. Our third core service is Enterprise Identity and Access Management. We want to be able to provide our users with timely and appropriate access so they can get on the system on a timely manner. We also want to make sure that the systems are taking advantage of enterprise single sign-on. We track 6 performance measures. The number 1 measure is system capacity utilization under our Systems Planning and Architecture core service. We had a target of 65% for FY10, and at the end of the year, we had accomplished about 74% of system capacity utilization. We would like that to be in the range of 70 to 80%, so we are able to accommodate growth and new initiatives. For FY11, we have set a target of 75%, which is 10% more than last year's target. For our Enterprise Systems Administration core service, we have 4 performance measures. Enterprise Applications Uptime. We had a goal of 99% uptime, and we accomplished 99.76% during the fiscal year FY10. And going forward, we have set a target of 99% as well. The second measure we have is a percent completion of successful backup of our enterprise databases and applications. We had a target of 97%, and we had made slightly over 99% during the FY10. We have set a target of 99% for FY11 for this metric. And the third under this category is percent of service requests closed on time. These are enterprise, ERP, SchoolMax, data warehouse related service requests that our office handled. We had set a target of 92%, and we had fulfilled, we have completed all our service requests within the time frame set. And we have set a target of 99% for FY11. We're hopeful that it would be 100% as well. And the fourth measure that we have under the systems administration category is the average time to test and migrate high priority patches from our testing environment into production. We have set a target of 2 to 3 months, and we have stayed on target. And finally, under the enterprise identity and access management category, we track the time it takes to provision our users access to our network, email, and various applications. Historically, we have had it about 5 days, and with the implementation of our new identity management software, we are able to complete this in 1 business day. And for FY11, we have set a 1-day target as well. And that completes my presentation. I'd like to invite Mr. Pierre Dixon.
Good afternoon. Right, telecommunications. To the first slide. The core services for telecommunications. I'm the director of telecommunications. My name is Pierre Dixon. Support information systems, software, and technology equipment. That involves the help desk and desktop support. Second core service is the infrastructure and voice and video data. Third, we have enterprise information technology security. Next slide, please. And lastly, the oversight of the federal E-rate program. What you're looking at right now are the four performance objectives for the Department of Telecommunications. Core service number 1 objective is to close help desk tickets within 24 hours. We were able to meet that metric. The goal for fiscal year 2011 is 89%. We don't see any problems with meeting that. The second core service was the number of individuals or personnel trained in security awareness training. We were targeting 5,000 staff members, but we were only able to train roughly 219. The reason was we lost funding for the program that actually housed security awareness training. There were no funds available. What we did do to meet fiscal year 2011 was to build our own internal program using Moodle, which is fully operational today. New staff members coming into the system are currently being trained on security awareness training. The third metric was the number of network-attached devices scanned. The target was 3,000, and that means all the computers, servers that we have on our system. We were able to successfully scan 1,230. We were unable to meet that goal due to the fact I did not have dedicated staff to actually handle the number of scans. Since this time, for fiscal year 2011, I've reallocated personnel to specifically handle scanning, so we target 10,000 devices this year. And lastly, the amount of E-rate funding received, we targeted $500,000. There's actually a lot more than that due. we were unable, despite significant efforts by the CIO and other members of our department to have these funds released from USAC. We were unable to do so. And for fiscal year 2011, this core service has been moved to the CIO's office. And that concludes my presentation. I would now turn it over to Mark Turner, Director of Technology Operations.
Thank you, Pierre. I'm Mark Turner, Director of Technology Operations for the school system. And my core services are network services, enterprise service support, operations, student records and archiving, also known as microfilm, and software and hardware testing. And performance measures that I'm going to work through here are the percentage LAN/WAN uptime. We did not meet that this past year due to, on June 2010, Verizon prematurely disconnecting a couple elementary schools and causing 96 hours of outage, which really impacted our metrics significantly. Along with in September, we had a main core router failure at Bonnie John's and 9 other short outages contributing to this metric not being met. In FY11, IT will be upgrading the network to incorporate more fault tolerance and redundant routing at our 2 core sites, Bonnie John's and Sasser, to improve availability of our network. And we're also partnering with the University of Maryland so that we can have a secondary ISP connection for failover in case our primary fails. Hopefully we'll have that up this year. And the second metric talks about that. We did not meet our metric. 2 major outages. One was 14 hours, a fiber cut down with Verizon connecting up our ISP. And another one was a quarter-hour outage that we had. So hopefully with collaboration with the University of Maryland, we'll be able to have a failover solution for us this year. The last metric on this page, 99% cache server elimination. We targeted this to reduce this target from 100% to 60% because we do have some legacy applications that still require the cache machines. But in general, this metric is complete and is met due to the fact that we won't be tracking this any further in the new year. Next page. Decreased number of servers that still need to be virtualized. IT will continue virtualizing servers in FY11 to support the reduction of older servers into a more reliable platform, and we've met this metric. Improves server reliability. We didn't meet this metric. The Sasser filer last year failed at the beginning of the year, causing a long outage of 115 hours. The filer's data was migrated to the SAN, which is a more reliable storage media, and a new server was put into place. A continued migration to VMware will improve this measure. Our next metric is percent successful bank wire transfers. My department's responsible for ensuring that all the bank wires go through, and they were 100% this past year, along with check printing, even in the snowstorms that we had this past year, which were pretty significant. Next page, percent successful backups, servers, and tape management. We were 100% met that metric. And percentage of data center monitoring temperature and power, which is very critical. If air conditioning goes out or electricity goes down, it's important to be on top of it and respond accordingly so that our servers don't get damaged by excessive heat or power problems. And our monitoring systems have helped us out tremendously in that area. Percent successfully completed data center security logs, that is met our 100%, and percent successfully weekly change management meetings. That's a meeting with our staff to go over all projects every week, see where we're at, and assigning staff their duties. Next page, percent successfully duplicating aging microfilm and microfiche documentation. We did not meet this this past year due to personnel matters, and percent of transcript requests processed in 4 business days, 100% met, and this is for all transcripts or graduates pre-school max. Number of transcripts requests processed in a year, and this is a new metric going into FY11, and we typically get 8,201 this past year requests. You can actually times that by 3 for actually how many hard copies people typically request, 3 to 5. Number of compatibility tests requests. What this metric is about is academics will ask us to test a particular software out, and I'll assign an engineer and we'll review it for compatibility on our network and security related issues, also working with the security team. And we performed 42. Next year we plan to assess 45 new products. And percent software and hardware compatibility test requests completed, and we met that 100%. Thank you. And Lisa Spencer from the technology training team is next.
Thank you, Mark. Good afternoon. My name is Lisa Spencer, and the training team is responsible for providing training on all the administrative information systems, such as Oracle, SchoolMax, ERO, as well as our new substitute management system, ESOP, just to name a few. We are also responsible for providing instructional technology training and focusing on the integration of those tools in the classroom. With that in mind, we have 2 core services. The first is working on improving our technology training for the information system side. Our core performances that we have selected to actually help us meet this target pertains to the percent of participants passing the training assessments. We met that goal. The number of training resources, we have exceeded that goal. And as you can see, we've raised the bar for this school year. The percent of post-assessments created, again, we've met that goal. The percent marked for satisfactory on end-user evaluations, we have indeed surpassed that goal. And next school year, well, actually this school year, we've added a number of online modules and courses to be created, especially since we now have Moodle up and running, and the goal is to utilize it as a true learning management system. So we are prepared to do so. Our second core service focused on the instructional side of the house, and in order to help increase and improve the effective and appropriate use of technology and the integration of it within our classrooms, our core performance measures are the number of training resources. We have surpassed that, our original target. The number of attendees in our technology expos and conferences, we did not meet this goal. We have technology expos that are designed to make help our instructional leaders become aware of exactly what type of technology tools we have available for teacher use. And the goal is that we expose them to those tools so that they can then help with monitoring the teacher use at the classroom level. There's also the technology conferences. As you know, we host Powering Up with Technology conference every year in November, and we also support the Maryland State Technology Conference, and we have been able to send a number of staff members to those conferences. We did not meet our goal in terms of the number of staff members that we would be able to send. Regarding the percent of STEP participants, STEP is our Sharing Technology with Educators program. We had 136 participants. 21 of them dropped out. This is a program that requires a commitment on behalf of the participants. We had we actually did not meet our goal, which was 90%, but we're continuing to work towards achieving that goal this school year. Our percent of end users completing the technology CPD courses. CPD stands for our continuing professional development classes. Teachers actually register for these courses for credit. We were close, but there were a couple that dropped out or was not able to complete the session, so we received the 94%, but we're still striving for the 95 for this school year. And combined, we want our STEP participants and our CPD participants, we're utilizing them to help measure technology use in the classroom and expecting to achieve an increase in usage of the technology, appropriate use of technology in the classroom. So we had 216 total with 242 participants, out of 242 participants, so 216 completed, which gave us an 89%. So we're still working towards achieving our 90% goal. So that basically covers what we are working towards as far as the technology training team is concerned. I will pass it now to our Director of Business Applications, Yusuf Antar.
Thank you, Lisa. Good evening. I'm Yusuf Antar, Director of Technology Applications. This department takes care and supports instructional and administrative offices information system, such as the Oracle EBS, the Student Application System, SchoolMax, and soon to be the Data Warehouse System. In addition, we support several systems that integrate with the above systems, such as ERO, FIRST, new substitute system, ASOP. We also offer scheduling support and scheduling services. And last year, we closed over 2,000 help desk tickets. Our core services consists of, there's three: software application implementation and support. We work with the enterprise system group. We test the application patches and the system patches that are at a database level. Last year, we also implemented the first electronic student record card in the state of Maryland, and other school districts have expressed interest in working with us to implement an electronic student record, such as Howard County. Currently, we're working with the Special Education Department on a response to intervention system, RTI. We also work with the Finance Department on the custom budget and planning system for the Finance Department. We work with several departments to support also the paperless environments. Work with HR to utilize self-service modules to streamline recruitment activities and leave management. We work with the payroll and encouraging employees to sign up for direct deposit and online pay slips. Out of the employee population, we have 19,479 employees sign up for the direct deposit. Only 1,725 employees sign up for pay slip, which is 8.8 to 5%. We also support the iExpense, which we have 1,400 employees trained on using these services. Second core is service request authorization SRA system. It's used to track and monitor user requests from several departments. For now, the goal is to keep the percentage of SRAs at the same level, regardless of the increase in number of systems implemented and supported. This includes the critical SRAs, non-critical but essential SRAs, non-critical but essential SRAs like nice-to-have features. In an effort to offset the large volume of SRAs received by the department, we're planning to create a change control board to evaluate all requests and reduce redundant requests. Data Warehouse will help reduce some of those requests. We also provide to the user reporting tools to access the data without an SRA. We're recently also been talking and working with the performance management group to define critical business process and streamline the current environment. We are today, many business processes are not defined properly and could be improved to reduce the administrative burden. Our third core is system integration and support. The department provides data to third-party software, financial institute, and invoicing, MSDE, testing office, and people accounting, ERO, ASOP, and the FIRST program. That include we pretty much met all our target for FY10. We're hoping to do better in increase the level of support in areas where it's above. We want to make sure that we meet the 90% threshold in FY12. This concludes my presentation. I yield the floor to Mr. Earl McJett, Manager of Printing Services. Thank you.
Thank you, Yusuf. I am, as Yusuf has stated, Earl McJett, the Manager of Printing Services. The primary function of printing services is to provide printing materials as needed throughout our system. To do this, we have two core services. The first is printing services, or the print shop. And in the print shop, we have high volume equipment, which is offset presses and digital printing devices. And then we have the copier program, which provides standard copy machines for schools, administrative buildings, and support facilities. Our first performance measure is on-time delivery of printing jobs. Our target for FY10 was 91%. And we completed and actually did 95%. Our target for FY11 is to do 96%. A very slight increase, but it becomes more difficult as we close in on 100%. Next was duplex printing. Our goal for FY10 was 80%. We, once again, exceeded our goal, and we achieved 91%. This was reached by educating our customers. What we tried to do was, in every instance that we received a printing request that asked us to print only on one side, we call or email the customer and would ask them why was it requested that it only be on one side. In most instances, once they understood that they would have less paper and that we would save money and time in producing their product, they agreed to do that. We do not force this on them, and we let the customer decide whether or not they really want to print one side or not. Our goal for 2011 is 92%. This is not going to be as simple as it sounds, because we are pretty much maxed out as far as what we can get in the production of duplex printing. But we're going to try and attain that goal. Our next core service is the copier program. The number of copiers leased in FY10, our goal was 894. We actually attained 865. We reduced the fleet even more than we had anticipated. Our goal for FY11 is 878. The higher number is because of the instances such as Obama Elementary School, which has already opened, and we've already placed 4 machines there. There's very often during the year, officers move around, and we will have to reallocate machines or add additional devices. And then finally, the copier uptime. For FY10, our goal was 88%, and we achieved 89%. For FY11, it's going to be 80%. It will be less, and that's simply because these are electromechanical devices, and the more they're used, the more they break down. Our contract covers all maintenance and materials, and so it will not cost us any more, but it does mean that sometimes the machines will be down longer than we would like. They will require more parts. Sometimes it takes overnight to receive the parts. That concludes printing services briefing. Thank you very much.
Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Watts. What we're going to do, sometimes we switch up a little bit, but we're going to sort of go down the list based on the presentations. So, colleagues, I have Ms. Johnson and Ms. Fletcher and Ms. Waller, but my question is, does anyone have questions with regard to enterprise systems or the initial presentation by Mr. Watts? Okay, Ms. Fletcher.
That, and I'm quite sure this is the right page, where you talked about the E-rate system.
Yes, ma'am.
Before I get to the E-rate, well, E-rate, there was mentioned a letter of August the 9th,
Yes.
and then our response September the 8th, and I guess this is to Dr. Height. Can we get copies of those letters?
Yes, Ms. Fletcher, we can.
Yes, ma'am.
Page 15, is that in the same section? That's past your section.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Okay, actually, the E-rate section is telecommunications, because I had some questions on that too, but enterprise systems. Ms. Waller?
First off, to the technology team, we want to say kudos for getting us off to a great start with School Max. Last year, I was not smiling. I'm smiling this year. Congratulations, and certainly I know it was a team effort and it was hard, but it's paid off in that our constituents are very happy. Our students are being well served. The first question I'm going to ask about is really about School Max insofar as it pertains to our administrators. And it's about the goal of the staff usage and the training for the staff. What is your time frame for ensuring that all staff receive training on School Max and that they are actually using School Max? The second question, I suppose, that goes along with that, how are we ensuring that all of our teachers, administrators have computers in their classrooms to do the necessary work, and how soon were they up and running when school started?
Yes,
Thank you.
Okay.
Just one quick second. Certainly you can answer the questions. My question is, would it be better to get to the training section to answer those?
We will accommodate the board in any way they want.
Okay, if you could jot those down,
Yes.
just because I want to keep us sort of in target.
We have it.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Waller. All right, Ms. Johnson, Enterprise Systems.
My first question is 9, so I think, isn't that the training session? I jotted them down according to
The page.
Page numbers. Let me begin first with a notation. The federal government has just provided, in fact, it was Tuesday of last week, $115.2 million for building broadband infrastructure. I don't know where that would fit. I think it's part of the beginning of this. What do you anticipate will be the assistance to Prince George's Public Schools with regard to that?
Ms. Johnson, we were part of a consortium that applied for the broadband initiative, and I have not heard any information, and I don't know if one of my other members have, about this, but we applied to have fiber basically run to all of our elementary schools. There are several of our schools that do not have fiber run to the school, so our application was basically to try to get fiber to each of the schools that didn't have it.
And you applied through the state of Maryland?
It was a consortium through the PGIT community.
Then it's $115.2 million.
Right, for the
has
entire state of Maryland,
That has,
yes.
that has been approved.
Yes.
And that is what I wanted to know. Libraries, you know, they gave a list of those, and where the public school system here and others, of course, would fit into that. Because as I sent the email to Dr. Height, we have communities in Prince George's County, most notably Akakeek. They don't have broadband there, down there. And so I am looking to get the data on, the information on what is the mapping for laying this broadband, the fiber optics. So thank you. I hope that we are going to benefit from that.
And as soon as we get an update, we'll provide that to the board.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I don't, how you're doing this, you're going to try to keep us based on...
What I'm really trying to do, Ms. Johnson, is to remind us that we also have the public who might be interested in these areas.
No, I got that. No, I just want to make sure that the questions get asked in the order
Oh,
that
absolutely.
you want.
Yes, ma'am. That's what I'm trying to do.
Okay.
And I probably should have announced it ahead of time so that people could do it, so I apologize.
Okay.
I think, though, Ms. Fletcher, what was your question? I'm sorry. The connectivity of schools, is that under enterprise systems?
No, ma'am, that's under technology operations.
Okay, we're getting there, though. Okay, so that brings us to, that concludes the questions under enterprise systems. I'm hoping that this will flow fine. The next section is telecommunications, and what I'm going to do is also take the names, and I definitely had a question around E-rate, if we can get more of an explanation of the meltdown, if you will,
Sure.
On that particular issue. And I also have Ms. Beck and Ms. Waller. Thank you. And Ms. Johnson. Fletcher.
So you want me to start with the E-rate program?
Yes, please.
As the board is aware, one of our previous superintendents, at the time, we had some difficulty with the E-rate program in that our E-rate program was basically halted. None of our applications were being reviewed, and applications that were in process were basically stopped at that time. During that time, we tried to work with the E-rate branch. It's called USAC. And we reached out to them, and we did not get much feedback from them. And we asked for the assistance of Congressman Hoyer's office. And Congressman Hoyer, last year, I think around, excuse me, August of last year, Congressman Hoyer sent a letter on behalf of our school district to the USAC administrator. And USAC did reach back and said that they were engaged in the discussions with Prince George's County Public Schools in addressing the issues and continue to work with us at resolving any issues regarding internal controls that they thought were not in place during the superintendency a couple superintendents ago. We received a couple, it's called a PIA. It's basically a request for information, an audit, if you will, from the E-rate program, and we answered all their questions that they had from the PIA sessions. In January of 2010, January 26, we received another letter from USAC with a number of questions regarding internal controls. Various questions, maybe 10 or 15 of them. At that time, we worked with our legal services group, board lawyers, and we responded to that letter within 30 days. The request was a response in 30 days, and we did so. We responded in 30 days, and our response went to USAC on February 25th, 2010. In May, after about 2 months, I contacted USAC and asked for a meeting, and I was afforded a meeting in June 23rd, 2010, in which we went downtown to Washington, D.C. headquarters, the USAC headquarters, and we spoke to them about basically our response. At that time, they didn't have anything in writing for us, but they did promise us to send something in writing after the June 23rd meeting. We received a second letter from USAC on August 9th, asking for clarification of the few of the questions that we responded to on February 25th. We have responded to that as well within 30 days. On September the 8th of this year, September the 8th, 2010, The school district responded to the USAC letter and went forth and requested a face-to-face meeting with USAC at that time. Right now, we're waiting for the face-to-face meeting to be scheduled. It's been a week now. We called this week to try to get you a date to let you know that we were going to meet face-to-face. We don't have that date yet, but our hope is that we'll have this date soon to review any outstanding issues they may have on internal controls and then to move forward with our application process.
Thank you. I think everyone can appreciate that as we continue to struggle through
Yes, ma'am.
budget issues and have had to make some undesirable cuts across the school district, that funding like that
Yes.
is critically important. So I'm glad to hear that it's been an ongoing process and that you've been working really desperately around that. I think as well, Dr. Height, it might be a good idea to sort of continue the request from Steny Hoyer's office to, also help us in that effort, because it's not as if this is not funds due the school district. It's critical.
Yes.
So thank you for that. And also, I have I'm sorry. Could you please explain, I apologize. You're right, Ms. Fletcher. Explain what E-rate is for the benefit of our
Yes, ma'am. E-rate is a federally funded program to provide funds to school districts for things like internet service, bandwidth to the schools, telephone, long distance and local distance services. It's a discounted rate. Currently, our district rate is about 62% discount. So for every dollar we spend, it's 62% discounted, basically. So we spend basically 38 cents on the dollar for phone services, long distance, internet service, and things like that. There are also Priority 2 services which provide opportunities for the school district to wire buildings, to make them wireless, a few other different services they provide. But those services are funded after Priority 1. After the telecommunication services are provided, there's whatever's left, then the federal government decides and they go down rates, 95% rate, free and reduced lunch. They may get some of their buildings wired, and it goes down and lower each year as the buildings are wired. It may get down to the 80% level.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Beck?
On page 9, under telecommunications, the Security Awareness Program, I think it was Ms. Price who talked about that, or no? Anyway, we talked about meeting the goal, the target goal of 5,000 for FY 2011. How was that? We created our own program instead of using the Skillsoft?
That's correct. We built our own internal program for security awareness training.
How much of a savings was there by doing something like that?
The actual Skillsoft program was $80,000, so we saved 80 grand.
It's always good to hear when we save money
Absolutely.
like that. That jumped out at me as we're meeting the goal in another way.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Ms. Beck. Ms. Waller? Did you have a question on this section there?
Got confused, had my little notes here.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. The Security Awareness Program, I think this is great, and I think that the more that our staff realize the seriousness of what we are talking about, we talk about security awareness, I think we'll be much the better off, keep them out of trouble and protect everybody. And so my question refers to, will the number of employees that's going to be trained, will it include what is referred to as long-term subs, contractors, and vendors? Are they going to be included in this training process? Because I'm assuming, and I'm pretty sure they do have access to our equipment.
Yes, my goal would be anyone that touches the network should be trained.
And do you have a goal for reaching out to these persons that are already here and they, long-term can be whatever, or the vendors could be for a certain time period? Is there a priority for getting these persons training when they come into the system, or at what point are we working with them to see that they receive this training? And do they sign documents regarding the use of the school equipment?
Yes, they do. Everyone has to sign the AUG agreement before they're allowed to have access to our network. Currently, what we're doing is new employees are going through security awareness training, and my staff is actually targeting different departments. So we're going to start central offices first, and then on down to make sure everyone gets trained. I would like to see it done every year. That's my personal thing, but I'd like to see everyone trained every year because it does change. So.
Thank you, Ms. Waller. Ms. Johnson?
Same slide, 9. 219 trained, 5,000 projected that you would do that. My notes indicate you said loss of funding. What I'd like to ask is, what is the downside of not having been able to train? I would assume that you did 5,000 because that goal would do something for our system. What's the downside for not having trained, having, almost 4,800 people not having been trained? What does that do? Ms. Johnson, the downside is viruses, malware hitting the network, inappropriate use. That's the downside. You can actually have one person, open up a file and have that file propagate and shut down our network. So one person missing it could cause a lot of problems. And that's what I wanted you to talk about, why it is imperative that we did those 5,000. How are you making up for that loss? Because clearly, viruses, malware, spyware, all this other stuff, not only can take you down for days, even hours, it could also mean the complete replacement of certain laptops, desktops, thousands and thousands of dollars because someone didn't recognize. So how are you going to make that up?
What we're doing, I look at security from a multi-tiered perspective. So it's not just security awareness training, but we also have other devices on the network that can capture inappropriate data. I can actually block certain things. I look at projections. I get U.S. CERT alerts every day from the federal government. So I'm always watching. We're going to try to, the 5,000 number was just a projection, but the goal is to actually have everyone trained this year.
No, I got that. What I'm trying to get you to articulate is when you balance end users, teachers, guidance, whomever, the end user, and the potential for having not gone through even this preliminary training could be millions of dollars in harm to the system in terms of productivity, loss. And I'm asking, because you didn't do that goal, you didn't meet, if it was like 50%, but this is hugely off, how are you making that up? How are you trying to get it done in terms of getting people trained? That's what I'm after.
Okay, what we're doing right now is we are training the new staff that comes aboard. The individuals that were scheduled to be trained are going to be trained now, the ones that we missed. Okay, so we're actually looking at, we have a schedule already put together that we're going to target different departments, different divisions within the school system to ensure that training takes place.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. I think that brings us to technology operations. I have Ms. Fletcher.
Now, I hope this is the appropriate area. Because I just put page numbers down. I saw in there where you had something about microfilm, microfiche, turning that over. My question is this: where are we in terms of student records being placed on our computer system so that student records could be transferred at the click of a button, particularly health records? But, they talk about records being mailed, lost in the mail. How is that?
So that's a very good question, ma'am. As you know, the state of Maryland has several, I think they're called PS cards, and these cards last year were created electronically. Inside of SchoolMax, we have about 4 of the 7 cards that are created electronically. The one that we don't have created electronically is the immunization record, okay, which is a letter. It's a small document that is signed by doctors front and back and things like that, as well as we have a transfer one that well, that's the fifth one that we have. We have that electronically. So we are making strides forward for that. We still have a system that, if you will, we started SchoolMax in 2008, so we have our electronic records from 2008 forward, and we have paper records, if you will, from 2007 backward. So we're sort of in these transition years of what's happening right now. Today you can go in and you can look up a PS Card 1 on a student, and you can pull that up inside of SchoolMax today. As well, you can do that for a transfer. When you're transferring from one school to another, you can pull that information up and share that information. The health records are a little bit more difficult because of the signatures, so we are looking into that. We also have a module that we have not implemented inside of SchoolMax called the health record. It's the health module. Staff in student services are beginning to review that, and they'll make a determination whether that module fits their needs or not. But right now, we do not have a solution, if you will, for the immunization card at this point in time.
One of the concerns, the reason why I'm asking you this, students promoted to the 9th grade, going to the 8th grade from the 6th grade, and parents have emailed all the records were lost. And I hear what you're saying from 2008, and a lot of these students were in our system 2008, and that could actually be done by a click of a button.
Yes, it can.
The back records. So what is the holdup in between?
Well, right now I do think we have some process issues that we're dealing with student records. Like I said, we are in transition between paper and electronic for most of those records, and we don't have a solution right now electronically for health records, the immunization card itself. Okay. So I think we have some processes that we need to work out. We also had we added a procedure or process this year in which children transitioning from grade levels, from elementary to middle and from middle to high, we added that all those addresses had to be verified, which we haven't done in years past. And I think that caused some of the complication this year as well.
But eventually we will do registration and everything by the computer.
We'll get there.
Yes. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fletcher. Ms. Waller?
Thank you. The first question, I have a question about the reduction of cell phone usage for staff. Does that come into this area?
We can address that if you'd like.
Well, thank you. I know the other one does, I believe. We know that there's been a reduction in cell phone usage among the administrative staff. Are you all reviewing or reprioritizing the usage of any of these cell phones for the staff? For instance, if we have an event going on at one location and our communications department needs to get word to the photographer to be somewhere, this is real elementary, do you all reprioritize who has a cell phone and how you contact that person and get them to that event? The second question that I have, and I went over to Bonnie John's and I got to see the operation over there. Yes. And it's about the poor power and cooling processes that's in place at that center. And I know that we are doing more with less, but could either you or Dr. Height address what we're going to do to provide a stable infrastructure, because I think it's important that we do send the right message, and I was just real impressed with the visit that I had there. So those are my two questions. Thank you.
Okay, so for the first one, I'm going to address the cell phone issue. If there is a need in one of the chief's divisions or one of the area superintendent's areas, they request a phone. Okay, and if that phone's approved, we provide it. Right now, we have approximately 170 phones that are being used by school system staff, down from almost 1,100. So as you can see, we're saving approximately $45,000 a month just in cell phones, okay, which was what we intended to do about a year ago, and we made that happen. Just so you understand and make it clear that if there is if there is a need and it's valid, it's approved and we move forward with a cell phone. Okay. Regarding the power, there's two things inside of Bonnie John's. Bonnie John's is a rather older building, if you will, and we have challenges in two areas there. We have a TV studio there that requires air conditioning and power, and we also have a data center there that does the same thing. Right now we are looking at potential upgrades in the data center through the technology refresh program. And what we do is we set aside approximately 20% of the refresh funds to improve our networks, to improve our servers, and things like that. And basically what that means is we try to set aside funds each year so that we have money to make sure that payroll can be completed, our data centers don't fry up, they don't burn up, and things like that. So we are working on that. I do not know, and we probably have to ask supporting services, as far as air conditioning for the building, that's a different topic, and I don't know that answer, to be honest with you.
Okay, and that was the cooling of the center. I know when I went over there, it was warm. The temperature was not at the temperature that for all the equipment they had, it was not at the temperature that they would have liked to have had for this center, and that was what I was referring to.
Yes, ma'am.
And I guess, Dr. Height, I would just like to bring it to your attention, and as we go along with our budget, that we look at that area of operation. And I'd like to commend, again, the staff that's located at that facility for working in the conditions that they are working in. They're doing a great job. It's fascinating to go there and see. Thank you.
It's pretty crowded. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Waller. Ms. Johnson?
Going along with that particular, with the commentary, I'd like to go back to, you were indicating that records such as immunization records, records that require signatures. Let me ask you, what is the scanning capability to scan in these documents to then become a part of the digital record that we have? Where are we in terms of that level of capability for those documents that need original views?
So what we do centrally, Ms. Johnson, is exactly that. We actually scan in all of our records centrally. So at the end of a school year, we actually have a scanning system inside of one of our offices that scans all that information. Unfortunately, we don't have that capability out at every school to scan in the individual immunizations. So what we get at the end of every year are the seniors that are graduating. We don't have all the first graders and second graders, those things.
And that is the basic part of my question.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
think that anybody who has been to their doctor's office lately, they have these little bitty things, and they take your credit card, they take all that, and they just run it right through this little machine, and right there in their records. So I'd like to know, or as we go through, looking at when are we going to see ourselves moving in that direction where at the registrar's desk or wherever those records are brought in, that we can begin to scan them into the SchoolMax system. We clearly have got to move there. It is less time consuming and it is much more cost effective than microfilming and microfiche, and you don't have the worry about lost data. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I think those are the questions that I had. Is STEP and CPD, is that in your section?
That's under Miss Spencer.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. And before we leave this section, I wanted to at least point out, Mr. Watts, how great it was for staff to come in during that horrific snow that we had to make sure that printed checks were done and that wire transfers were done. And so we want to commend you on that. That was yeoman's, to say the least, in all that snow. Ms. Waller, did you have another question on this section?
Thank you, Madam Chair, being most gracious today. I have a question around our students' ID badges and the chip pertaining to the information that's on their ID badges. Is this under this section?
No, ma'am. The ID badges are made by individual schools. We do keep the photographs inside of SchoolMax. SchoolMax has photographs in them if the schools so choose to put them there.
So I thought at one time we were talking about having information on the IDs, or did we do away with that system? You know, I understand that there are corporations and things that are, vendors that want to do business with us, so that there are students roaming the halls, or, whatever. We can tell even what buses they're supposed to be on. Where are we with it? Are we going to go in that direction at all? I know, again, we're doing more with less, and I'm talking a budget issue, but where are we, with that?
We do not have information stored on any chips on any ID badges in the district at this time.
One time there was a situation, and I know it's been several years ago, of pertaining to security at a school. We don't have security information on the badges either.
We have a simple barcode on there that has a student ID number and a student name.
So now, I'm almost about to ask a question that, what's the purpose of the students wearing the badges? At what point, I think that, we have enough going on in our communities. I know we've had some emails going forth recently about some violence issues, bullying issues, situations arising in classrooms. And just for students just to wear a badge, is anybody checking the badges when they go into school? Or what is the purpose of the badges?
That's for identification, Ms. Waller.
For who?
I'm sorry?
Who is the identification for who now?
For the students. So the badges are a form of identification so that we would know that they're current students at that school and not individuals who should not be there. That's why we ask most students to have a picture ID. Now, with the information, as you know, before we had a pilot with several schools just to really focus on attendance, if you will, and that's why in those situations we added the student ID number, so that they were only recording attendance. It's not a tracking device where we are able to follow a student from one place to the next. It was just to determine if the student arrived at class on time. And that was only in those two locations. I think it was Douglas and Largo.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Are we looking to go back to being able to do more with the ID badges? Or are they just going to remain ID badges?
Ms. Wallace, to answer that question, we actually talked about like a one-card system that could also record whether or not the student entered the bus, whether they're on the right bus. They could use it in the school libraries, in the public libraries, and we have asked, with a partnership with Park and Planning, because they also use an ID, and we asked them to support that moving forward, and we're just still in conversation with that. It's a cost associated, quite frankly, but that's what we would like to build into our system so that it's a card that students actually need to acquire services, and then we think it wouldn't be a need to always remind them to display their IDs.
And certainly I would like to encourage administration to pursue the discussion with Park and Planning. As you all know, we've often said we have our students from 8 to 3 or 4, and we're doing partnerships with our other business communities and everything after that. And to have the one card for academics and then even, outside activities would be superb. And perhaps with the business advisory group you have, that might be a function that they might even want to look at because I'm sure that it would help our academics. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Waller. Colleagues, that brings us to technology training.
In response to Ms. Waller's question earlier on training, training for the administrators, school-based administrators on SchoolMax is held throughout the school year. There's also some regional technology coordinators who are responsible for X number of schools, and they also service the training there.
Okay, and what about the staff of computers for, I'm sorry, the lack of computers for staff? How soon were you all up and ready for all of our staff to have Prince George's County Public School issued laptops or whatever it is for the teachers to start using School Max to put grades in and communicate with parents? What was your goal? Did you meet it? Where are we with that? Thank you.
Yes, we were able to speak with every technician in the school system to make sure that every staff member was ready, had equipment on day one, and to my knowledge, we met that goal. Now, there were some issues with some of the boundaries, but we were able to make sure that everybody was able to log in on day one.
So does that have anything to do with the principals at the schools ensuring that the administrators have the computers, or does that come from you all? I mean, you know, I know you all are out here. How does that work?
So I just want to clarify a few things. Possibility Prep, the computers came the first week of September, so that was a little late. They received new computers. We do have a couple incidences where there is a new temporary building that has no internet access, and they are, if you will, they don't have access to the internet. For the majority of the buildings, a high percentage of all the buildings, if they don't have a laptop, they have a desktop in their classroom which they can do these functions. They can take attendance and enter grades. But there are some issues out there with temporaries, and we were a little late on the Possibility Prep program.
Sorry. We've moved on to, I have some questions about STEP and CBD. Are we at that place? Okay, okay.
We're still in training.
Okay, excellent. I'm sorry, I'm still open? Okay, thank you. We use acronyms all the time. We have our constituents here today. What is STEP and what is CPD?
STEP is Sharing Technology with Educators program, and CPD is Continuing Professional Development.
Okay, and certainly with STEP and CPD, it is instrumental that all of the technology programs are involved in every aspect of every grade of all of our students, and that all of our teachers use it and they're up to par. I think it's, you know, when I hear of students that are ready to go to college and they're not familiar with various programs, that is a major concern. So
Definitely.
I'm glad to know, and I know as we have new teachers coming in, and even some of our senior teachers, they may not be familiar with these acronyms, and certainly we want our constituents to know that we're trying to reach everybody, and we know that our young students, you know, they are learning, and we want everybody else to come along the line also. Thank you.
That is important.
Thank you, Ms. Waller. Mr. Harris?
My question pertains to training on School Max. Do you guys have sessions where you train parents and students?
Actually, we do not. Well, we had parent liaison last year, and they were also sessions that were held that were at the school, whether it was a back-to-school night or just a family night where parents were invited in to register for the family portal, but we do not necessarily have training. There is indeed documentation for the family portal for family and student use, and we can definitely make sure that your technician or your technology liaisons in all the buildings have access to that information to share.
Okay, and how are you promoting the family portal to the students, to the parents this year?
How are we? That's basically generally done at the school level because we don't necessarily have direct access to the parents. So once we train the designated personnel in each of the buildings on the family portal, realistically, it is the school's responsibility to service their parents. So when the parents come in, the school office personnel should be registering the parents or giving the information for parents to register in the family portal.
All right, and my second question is, I guess, off topic, but I'm going to ask it anyway. I believe students all are going to be receiving emails, and this might apply to a different staff member. This is true that all students will be receiving emails?
Google.
Yes. So, Mr. Harris, we are working at the high school level now with principals, and we are setting up timeframes for when the high schools in particular, we're working with them in this fall period and up until December, working with them to work with the students to provide access through Google Apps. That's correct. There's a pamphlet, and there's information that goes home to parents as well to students about what is being provided in that email account. And now, I will say that the email account is a little different than a staff account in that a student can only email inside of the school district, meaning that if you receive an email account, a student email account, you can only email one another that says @pgcps.org. So you can email a staff member or a student, but you cannot email the University of Maryland, for example.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Ms. Johnson?
Thank you. With regard to technology training, I copied your numbers. 21 dropped out, 21 teachers dropped out in one session, and I don't know, 30 plus or so in another. Some of the reasons, you talked about the personal commitment, and clearly I can understand that. How do you promote it? How did you promote it? What are the reasons for dropout? And within looking at those reasons, how are you changing what you're doing so that when you get a cohort of people doing it, they will go through it and will complete it? Because clearly, we need to have this happen. So I'm very concerned about the dropout numbers and what you've learned as a result of that. And with both STEP and CPD, and as we move to the next section, concerned about the aging out of our equipment, the refreshing of them, and how we are utilizing that older equipment, which still has value. As long as it turns on and gets you there, it's okay.
It's usable. The STEP program is an application process. What has to happen is that the schools who are interested in applying, they form technology teams in their building. Those technology teams submit an application, and based on what they are doing in their building, their school improvement plan, they submit the application and what their desire is as far as utilizing the technology. We have several different strands, and based on the rubric, the schools are selected. And it requires 3 to 5 hours extra per week. They have to attend the training or they won't get the equipment. So each equipment that's delivered requires training. And then it's followed up with an activity or particular information or a particular task that they have to perform, because it all is culminated in their e-portfolio. So all of that has to be done. If you're not going to attend training, if you're not going to do the required work, then realistically it's not something that you're ready for.
And that is, we needed to know that, because that means that's a downer for that school.
Exactly.
Because that school wanted to reach this level, but because of the things that you've just identified, they don't get it.
Right. And also, excuse me, if they decide to drop out, we have to go back and get their equipment. So they're not allowed to keep the equipment if you're not attending.
And that is why I wanted you to talk about that. There is, because ultimately student achievement, the credibility, the training of our staff in their ability to do cutting edge things, work with it harms kids. I'm sure that you all are not happy about this, and I just hope that you can, through the superintendent, let us know how we're doing with that, because it's a real bummer to anticipate getting some of this great stuff out there. You all buy good stuff, you show us and tell us, and I gotta say right now, I know how to use it. And I want everybody to, and it just pains me when I think about the planning and then they don't make it, and then the equipment is removed. It is very painful. So let's try to get 100%.
We're working on it.
Thank
and
you.
As far as the CPD courses are concerned, teachers register for those courses in order to get credit, continuing ed credit for
Right.
Recertification. So
Which is
some of the
still
courses
important.
It is.
It's important.
It is. So I'm
Thank
not really
you.
sure what the why the dropout reasons, but
Ms. Johnson, if I may just add to that, and we talked about this, and this is a function of performance management, because one of the things that we saw in the past is that we have a lot of individuals participating in training. And we experienced this at the beginning of the school year last year. A lot of individuals have been through the training, but in the past, we have not been capturing who has actually mastered the procedure or the protocol. So part of this, which has always been a part of the STEP, but we're actually applying it to all technology training, that there has to be a demonstration of proficiency with the tool or the application, or we will continue to have individuals go through that training.
Thank you, Dr. Height. That concludes questions regarding, I'm sorry, no it doesn't. Ms. Eiliff?
I just had one point for Dr. Height and related to Mr. Watts' presentation. So you have a performance target around a certain number of users using SchoolMax. But you mentioned that you don't have the control over the communication to the parents, that's done at the school level. And so I think that accountability line is mismatched. So I can just say as a parent from my school, I've never received one shred of information about SchoolMax. It wasn't on back to school night, it's not in the school newsletter, it's not in the 5-page letter I received from Maya's team teachers with all their email addresses and how to keep in touch with the school. And I think that there's actually a disincentive for the schools to have a lot of parents involved in SchoolMax because it's more work for them. So somehow the accountability needs to rest where it belongs. Thanks.
You're right, Ms. Eiliff, and I wrote that as a note that we have to create a central way to communicate that information. And I know leading up to the start of school, I communicated it every opportunity I had, whether it was in an interview or to parents directly. But we have to have a way as a system just to make that known, whether it's a call-out system, whether it's a billboard, whether it's an email blast. But we just have to have a way to inform our parents and push that information out.
And I would say the same about the farms. So the farms sign up. There was nothing at back to school night. There's been no push to get us to turn in that form.
Thank you, Ms. Olive. I think it really is critical when you have parents at this point in time in our world of SchoolMax that some parents still aren't aware of that capacity. That concludes technology training. Thank you very much. And brings us to technology applications. And it might be your lucky day.
Sure. I tried 3 times.
Actually, I don't have anyone lined up for technology applications. However, printing is next, and it looks like we might have a question or two for printing. I see one buzzing. See, it was your lucky day. That means everything's great. Thank you so much. Okay, Ms. Johnson. Well, that doesn't, for everybody else, it doesn't mean it's not great if you had to answer questions.
Thank you.
Yes.
No, I didn't have any question on patches. I happen to know that our department is quite proficient at writing them. And so whenever there are issues, they get down to work. So you guys are good with that, and ladies as well. With regard to printing, Mr. Majette, we are still letting you know we need X number of copies of this, that, or the other through a paper DA, right? Or can you get it electronically with what has to be printed, goes right into, a queue, and there we go?
99% of our work is received electronically.
Is where?
Is received electronically.
Okay.
However, the printing request is not yet electronic, and that is what we're working on.
Yeah, why is that?
Well, it's been a little difficult, and what we have incorporated is with our new copy machines, you're able to scan to email. So we're asking the customers to just take their form, scan it to themselves, and attach it to the same email that they send their files with. And therefore, we do have it all electronically, but we want to eliminate the form itself that they have to complete, and we want to do that electronically. So we have designed one, but we're not at a point yet where we feel it is operational.
That's what I had hoped, is we're going to get to where the user can just upload, you know, like Kinko's and Staples and Office Depot. You just upload it and fill it out, the form, and, you know, you go there 2 days later and it's all done. It would be very helpful to begin to move in that direction. I just wondered how far we were.
Yes, ma'am. There is one problem with that when you use the CPT type files, is the fact that anyone that goes into that file can see what everybody else has loaded. So therefore, we don't want that to happen. If you go to Kinko's, you go to some of these other things, there are times that you can see what other customers have sent. When we have sensitive information, we want to make certain that
clearly, I'm not, I mean, sensitive, and I'm talking about flyers, nothing sensitive. I'm just talking about being able to upload your standard type of print request, you know, flyers for a school event, that kind of thing. Sensitivity requires another whole discussion about security. I'm just talking about just your regular types of flyers, little booklets, and those kinds of things that are in a public domain. Nothing sensitive at all.
Yes, we do, and we are trying to incorporate an area where they can put it in a file and just send everything to us. That is generic for the entire system.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes our questions with regard to printers. And actually, Dr. Haight, at this time, if you and Mr. Watts have anything additional you need to inform the board on?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So that concludes our system oversight presentation. I think the performance measures process works because it shows us what the goal is, what we're not meeting, and then we have an opportunity to talk about why we're not there and what the goal is going forward. So, Dr. Haight, I think that the new system that you've put in place for system oversight clearly works well for the board, and thank you, Mr. Watts, for your presentation. Okay.
You're welcome.
Okay. Okay, colleagues, that actually brings us to, we don't have budget consent agenda items, but we do have 2 items on the consent agenda. I will entertain a motion for approval on those 2 items.
Move approval.
Thank you, Ms. Iliff. It's been properly moved and second that the board approves consent agenda items 10.1 and 10.2. Is there no discussion. All in favor? Any objections or abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed. And that also brings us now, there's no second readers on this agenda for today or first readers on today's agenda. Follow-up items for the system oversight. There are no follow-up items for this particular meeting. Anything else for the good of the order? Dr. Haight? Okay, thank you very much, colleagues. If we can now confirm actions taken in executive session, I would greatly appreciate it. Mr. Harris, would you like to do the honors? I'll show you. We need a motion to confirm actions in executive session, and these were the actions that we discussed. If you would please read those into the record, sir.
Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion to confirm actions taken in executive session, personnel matters, administrative appointments, resignation and termination report, administrative transfers, student appeals, and legal matters.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. It's been properly moved and second that we confirm actions taken in executive session. Seeing no discussion, Ms. Jackson, call the roll, please.
On the motion, Ms. Beck? Aye. Ms. Fletcher? Ms. Iliff? Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson? Ms. Waller?
Aye.
Mr. Harris?
Aye.
Ms. Jacobs?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Thank you, and we stand adjourned at 2:49 PM. And I know staff is going. Are we still awake, or what's going on? Thank you so much.
Are you ready?
Get ready.
I'm ready. Are you ready?
Are you ready? Get ready for the SAT.
It is the recommendation of Prince George's County Public Schools that most students take the SAT during the spring of their junior year. No student should take the SAT without prior preparation, and it should be known that it takes approximately 4 hours. During this program, you will become familiar with how to approach the different types of questions on the SAT, how to work within time constraints, and how to look for clues to reason through complex questions.
Hello, I'm James Miller, and I teach SAT Prep in Prince George's County. Today, we're going to look at some general SAT information as well as some general strategies for the reading and math sections of the SAT. We're going to start with some frequent answers to some frequently asked questions as well as some general strategies for the SAT. Are you ready? Let's get started. How often is the SAT given? 7 times a year, either October, November, December, January, and then either March or April, and then May or June. It's often a good idea for juniors to take the SAT either in May or June, and then again in October, November, December of their senior year. It's a good idea to talk to your guidance counselor and see what they think. Where do I take the SAT? Check with your guidance counselor. If the test is not being administered at your neighborhood high school, it is most likely being administered at a school close to where you live. What do I take with me on test day? You need a ticket, a photo ID, that's very important, pencils, a calculator, make sure it's a calculator you're familiar with, a watch, a snack, a plan, very important, and also a positive attitude. You want to try to be as positive as possible when you're taking this very long test. How many questions are on the SAT? There are 67 reading questions, 54 math questions, and 49 writing questions, plus 1 essay on every SAT. This is always the same for every SAT. Please note, though, that this does not include the experimental section because that section will not be scored and those questions do not count. Next, how many different sections are there on the SAT? There are 2 25-minute reading sections, 2 25-minute math sections, 1 20-minute reading, 1 20-minute math, 1 25-minute experimental section that does not get scored, 1 25-minute writing section, 1 10-minute writing section, and then the 25-minute essay. Please note that the 25-minute essay is always the first section of the SAT. It's always the first thing that you're going to do. Also, the experimental section, it could be a reading section, a writing section, or a math section. You're never going to know. It's always 25 minutes long, and it will not get scored. How is the test scored? 2400 is the highest possible score. 600 is the lowest possible score. So you have a 200 to 800 for reading, a 200 to 800 for math, and a 200 to 800 for writing. Please note, most colleges are separating the writing score when they're considering students for admission to their university. The writing score is usually kept separate. Therefore, what you want to do is you want to look at your reading and math score combined out of 1600, and that'll give you a good idea of where you can go to college or university. The best thing to do is call the college or university and find out their policy on the SAT writing section. Are questions arranged in order of difficulty? This is very important. Sets of sentence completion questions appear in order of difficulty. That means that number 1 is usually easier than number 4, which is usually easier than number 6. The questions go from easy